We're talking today with Mr. Leo Homrich of Wyoming, Michigan. The interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Now, Mr. Homrich, can you start by telling us a little bit about your own background? To start with, where and when were you born?
All right, I was raised right here on Homrich, or on Adams Street, on the farm. And when I was 17, I went and volunteered to go to the Army, but my dad didn't see eye to eye with me. I got my notice to report. My dad, he went to the draft board, and he said he isn't old enough. So they said, well, that's okay. They said, just as soon as he is, he won't have to re-register. As soon as he gets old enough, why, we'll just get a hold of him.
Okay. Now, let's see. Now, when were you born? What year?
January 10th, 1925.
Okay. So you're still, now, did you stay in high school or did you leave school?
No, I never went to high school.
So you finished 8th grade and then...
Yeah, I had a farm.
Right. Yeah, that was pretty common around here in those days.
Yeah.
Okay. So you finished 8th grade, so you're working on your family's farm?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what you were doing. Now, do you remember hearing about Pearl Harbor?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember the Sunday afternoon, it was next door to the neighbors. Mm-hmm. And which we always went back and forth, and it was Sunday afternoon, it come over the radio that Pearl Harbor was attacked. Yeah.
All right. And so your thought was you wanted to sign up
Well,
as soon as
I
you
thought
could?
I wanted to sign up. I didn't like farming. I hated farming. And so I sneaked down and registered, and I got my call.
Right. Now, were you 16 then or 17 when they called you?
I was 16.
Okay. Yeah, so you were a little too young.
Yeah, I was a little young. Yes. And besides, he needed me.
Right. Yeah. Now, I mean, you potentially had the option maybe to stay on the farm for some time and get a deferment.
Well, if I hadn't went and done what I did, I probably would have stayed on the farm for a while. But.
All right. Now, when did you actually join the Army then? Because we have your
40.
I think 43 is what we've got in here. March of 43.
Yeah.
Now, and then were you officially drafted?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you basically waited for them to call you.
But then I didn't want to go.
Okay.
I got a job with a Grand Rapids paint company, and I was making 45 cents an hour, and I thought I had the world by the tail.
Right.
And I didn't want to go, but it was too late. I had to go then.
Okay, and that maybe was not an essential war industry at that point, so you couldn't get the deferment.
Yeah.
All right. Now, had you been paying much attention to what was actually happening in the war up to that point?
Well, my sister, she was going with the guy that was engaged to him, I guess, and he flew an airplane around this area, and he went down, he fought all through New Guinea and this and that. And my uncle, my dad's brother, he also was down in there.
All right. So were they, had they been in the National Guard before the war?
Yeah,
so they went
the 32nd Division. 126th Infantry.
Right, because they were our local guard unit, and those are the guys who go into New Guinea first, right?
I remember them when they trained in Louisiana, and they come home on leave, and then of course then they went overseas. That was the end of that.
Yeah, that was not a
but
good place to go.
I fought right beside them. Mm-hmm. My uncle and them was all right next door, and one of the guys come over to see me.
So when you're in the Philippines, you mean?
No, in New Guinea.
Okay, in New Guinea. So you're in New Guinea. Okay, well, let's go back to the story here. You get drafted. Where did you have to report to once you're called up?
That's a no place. And Bigelow Field, Grand Rapids, I think there was a Bayern banker here. He was in charge of that draft board, and there's the old Bigelow Field. He used to have race cars and stuff there.
Right, and they played baseball there.
Yeah, the baseball, yeah.
Okay. So
I worked with Stubby Overmyers for years. He was a pitcher for Detroit. Yeah.
All right. So you show up to the ball field, so you sign up, and then where did they send you from there?
Then I went to Camp Robinson, Arkansas.
Okay.
Now, and I trained in Camp Robinson, Arkansas. And they opened a new camp in Tyler, Texas. And I went to Camp Fannin. I went to Camp Fannin and finished advanced training and came home on leave and went overseas.
Okay. Can you describe the basic training experience for us? What was that like?
Well, I couldn't take the heat very good.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in and out of the hospital quite a bit, and I'd get heat strokes or whatever it was.
Right.
So I didn't like that. I didn't like the South.
Okay. What part of Arkansas was Camp Robinson in? Was it close to
Little
anything?
Rock.
Near Little Rock. All
Little
right.
Rock. It was a beautiful camp. They
Mm-hmm.
had 4-man huts there, and what I used to like about it is they served all the meat. They served all the food right on the table, and you got to pass it from person to person.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't go through a line to get it.
All right.
Yeah,
And,
those are good old days.
okay. Now, how did the drill sergeants treat you?
Well, I thought they was kind of rough because when I come back from the hospital, my rifle had rusted up, and so when I came back during the day and I had to report to the drill field where the company was, and I took my rifle out and took it along. And when I got out there, this officer, he picked it up and he seen some rust on it. He says, "Who owns this rifle?" I said, "I do, sir." And he says, "What's the number of the rifle?" I hadn't even learned the number of it.
Mm-hmm.
So he says to me, "How do you know it's your rifle?" Well, I said, "I know, I brought it out here." He said, "No, you don't know if it's your rifle." So he gave me a rough time. He wouldn't give me that rifle. He took the rifle back to the company. He said, "When you learn your rifle number, you can come and claim it, but not before." So I had it written down. So I went up to the orderly room and I give him my number. And so,
All right.
yeah.
So you had some issues because you got sick or whatever and that kind of thing. In
Yeah.
general, though, did you do pretty well with the military discipline? Could you follow the orders and do what they wanted?
No. I had a sergeant, a first sergeant once. He said, "Of all the people that I ever trained," he said, "you got to be the worst." He used to make a full field pack in the hut or the barracks set up about this high from the ground, and he'd make you crawl underneath them from one to the other. Well, that was hard.
All right. But you survived that.
One time we had to fall in and out with change the dress code.
Mm-hmm.
So the second from the last time, they said, "Just go back, take off your leggings, and report back out." So they didn't give us much time to do that. So we went in and I thought, well, this is easy. I pulled the pant leg out of the leggings and like that and dropped them down, and the whistle blew, they fell out, and they come and look, pulled my pants up. "You got your leggings on, yeah."
All right.
You was told to take them off.
That's right. So you just found better ways to do
Yeah,
things,
oh,
and they didn't appreciate it.
No, they didn't appreciate it.
But they still had you wearing the leggings, and the leggings are old kind of World War I type uniform pieces.
Yeah.
But they still had, and that's in the summer of
yeah,
'43. You're still wearing those.
Oh, we wore them, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was a Browning automatic carrier. They, I think, if I remember right, it weighed 21 pounds with the tripods and this
Right.
and that. And I carried that most of my Army career. I used to shoot competition with it. I could get off 1 and 2 shots, but they did away with the ammunition carriers, and it was more than I wanted it to do.
So they had you carry
I
both the gun
finally
and
asked
the
for a
ammunition?
different gun or a different rifle, and they gave me the M1 then.
Okay. Now, when did you make that switch? Was that when you were out in the
I
field?
was in the Philippines,
Okay.
yeah.
But for the time being, so when you're training, initially you're training, when you're back in basic, were you just using M1s at that point? Or
Yeah, when I first went into Little Rock, Arkansas, we used sticks.
Yeah, right.
We didn't have guns. They didn't have enough guns to go around, so then they had what was that, the old bolt action,
Right, the old World War I rifles.
Some of
yeah.
us got them, and we had to clean them all up with, they was full of cosmoline,
Mm-hmm.
you know, clean them all up. Just got them cleaned nice and they passed inspection, and then we got the M1s.
All right. Because some of the Red Arrows and the guys who were down training in Louisiana back in 41, and they talked about having to use sticks and this
Sticks,
kind
yeah,
of thing.
yeah.
But even in 43, at the
Yeah.
camp you
Oh,
were
yeah,
at, they were still doing
There
that.
wasn't enough rifles to go
Okay.
around.
Now, about how long did you spend at Camp Robinson?
I was there probably a couple months.
Okay. And then they moved you down to Tyler, Texas. And
Yeah.
was it advanced infantry training you had
Yeah,
there?
advanced infantry training. It wasn't jungle training, I don't think, because I wasn't really supposed to go to the jungles.
Mm-hmm. Well, they probably didn't know where you were going yet. Or were you?
Well, they had it pretty much. I was supposed to go to the Battle of the Bulge.
Okay.
That's why I was in New York.
Right. But when you were training, were you training with a
No,
whole
you
unit?
trained for everything.
Yeah,
then.
so you're training basically as a replacement. So they would
Yeah.
send you to one theater or
Yeah,
another.
one theater or the other, yeah.
And so they thought they were going to need people to go to Europe at
Yeah.
that point. And of course, in the summer of 44, in the fall, they're not really sure how things are going to
That's
play out in
right,
either
yeah.
place yet. So you're basically doing general infantry training. Now, were you training on the BAR at that point?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you train on other weapons besides the BAR?
Oh,
and the
yeah.
M1?
I done quite a few. No, I trained on all the machine guns and all the different weapons, but I don't know. I was pretty good at the Browning automatic, and I used to shoot against company after company. Two things I was good at. I was running the obstacle course. Of course, I only weighed 130 pounds. Running the obstacle course and shooting the rifle. That was two things I was pretty good at.
Right. So they take a small guy and give him a big gun?
Well, they took the small guy and they put him in the front of the platoon so that he would have to go. That's what they told me. I used to always get in the back, and then I'd fall behind, and then they didn't like that, so they said, "You're going to march in front from now on." So I marched in front. They said that was to keep me going.
Now, when you were in training, either in Arkansas or Texas, did you get any chance to go off the base and go into town or anything like that?
Oh yeah, we went to Little Rock, Arkansas. Yeah.
And what sort of place was it at the time?
Oh, it was a fun place. I liked Little Rock, and then when we went to Texas, Tyler, Texas. That was the rose capital of the world. And that was fun.
Right.
We went to Kilgore, Texas, and I and my buddy, we went to Kilgore, Texas, and it was getting late to go home, so we was going to miss our ride back to camp. So we looked for a place to stay, and you couldn't find any. A taxi driver says, "Well, if we go out to this lake," he said, "you might find a place out there." So we went out there and rapped at the door, and nobody come to the door, and I felt of the doorknob. It was unlocked. When we went in, I said to my buddy, "Come on, I guess we can stay here." We stayed there, and we go back every week after that, and we stayed at this same cottage, and no one ever showed up to say anything to us against. Every time we'd go back, the beds were made and new towels and everything, and we did that for several weeks.
All right, well, that sounds like a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it was Kilgore, Texas. That was the oil town.
Right. Now, did you get in trouble for coming back late?
No.
So they didn't even know, or they just didn't worry about it?
I think the people knew it, and they knew it was soldiers, and they just let it go at that.
Okay. But on the base, was there a problem if you didn't get back when you were supposed
No,
to?
we didn't get in trouble.
All right. Now, about how long were you in Texas?
Well, I don't know how many weeks we was training. It seemed like forever. I don't know. It wasn't. I forget how many weeks of training we got.
Now, do you remember about what time of year it was when you left there? Were you in the fall? Or was
It must have been in the fall because it was on Christmas Eve when I was on the ship in New York Harbor.
Okay. So they sent you from the base in Texas out to New York?
They sent us what they call delay en route. They sent us home.
Right.
Then I had to report back to Maryland, Fort Meade, Maryland.
So what was it like to go home after spending a few months in the Army?
Well, it seemed pretty good.
Mhm.
I didn't like the Army anymore at that time.
All right. So you get to go home, and then you report to, you go to
Fort
New York.
Meade, Maryland. Yeah.
Okay, you go to, where did you go first then? From Michigan, you go to New York or to Maryland, or?
From Michigan, I went to Maryland,
Okay.
reported at Maryland, and then from Maryland to Camp Shanks, New York.
Right.
That was supposed to be a secret camp, and I went there, and I sat there while they brought in new troops. And it was cold there, yeah, because it used to go on 10-mile hikes there, and I used to do something to get extra duty, so I'd stay in and keep the fires going.
Mm-hmm.
So they thought it was punishment, but me, it was better to keep the fires going. I kept warm anyway.
All right. So about how long do you think they had you in Camp Shanks?
I was there a couple weeks.
Okay. All right. And then did you get to go into New York City at all while you were there?
Yeah, yeah.
So what did you do when you went into the city?
Oh, we just run around. You didn't know where we was going or anything, just roam the streets at night, and we didn't know what we was up to.
Now, did they have facilities there for soldiers? Were there like Red Cross or USO
Yeah,
canteens and that kind of thing?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so and then finally you get to Christmas and they load you up. Now, can you tell us about that? At the time when you're supposed to ship out, what happens?
Well, we all went to the harbor, and I got on the ship and was sitting there, and I remember it was on Christmas Eve, and they called my name Homrich to report to such and such a place, and I reported there, and they said, "You're one too many men, you have to go back." So I went back, but I felt so bad I wanted to go AWOL because I lost all my buddies,
Right. So this whole bunch. So you were with the guys that you had trained with, pretty much.
All the guys I trained with,
Right.
yeah, I
All
had
still
trained
together.
with in Arkansas and Texas. They were all gone.
And were you the only one they took off the ship, or?
Only one, just one.
All right. So you were special.
But I kind of figure, maybe somebody was watching over me, because the Battle of the Bulge was very. In fact, the girls that work here, two of the kids I went to school with are killed over there.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and it was not a good place to go as a replacement either.
One thing about the islands, they didn't have the big turnover there that you had in Europe. They didn't as many people get killed and stuff.
Well, there were some phases when they did.
Oh, they did, yeah.
But for the most part, not the Army units so much after that first campaign in New Guinea. So that probably would have been the case.
Yeah.
All right. So you're pulled off the boat. Now, did you sit around for a long time, or did they send you somewhere else right away?
I sat around for a couple weeks and waited for new troops to come in, and all at once they got word that they needed troops at Atapi. And so we went to New Caledonia, and then we went from New Caledonia over to Atapi.
Atapi is in New Guinea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, tell us about the trip over. What kind of boat did they put you on?
Well, they put it on, what do they call them, LSTs? The front of them opened up. And
Well, but how did you get across to the Pacific in the first place? So you're from New York. They ship you out.
that was a USS John Lykes.
Okay.
That was a merchant marine.
Okay. And what kind of boat had it been before the war?
It had been a cattle boat.
All right.
They still had some cattle, some stalls in it that was blocked off. You could see in them, but they had hauled cattle in that ship.
All right. Was that the first time you'd ever been on a ship on the ocean?
Yeah,
All right. And what was that like?
I got sick.
Did most of the guys get sick?
Most of them did, yeah.
All right. Now, did you sail out of New York, or did they put you on a train and send you somewhere else first?
Oh, I went out of New York.
All right. And so you went, and did you go through the Panama Canal?
Panama Canal.
All right. And can you describe that? What did you see when you were there?
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. When we went through, they took us through during the night, and it was getting daylight as we went through. and looked out. What I thought was all grass was all guns, all kind of guns from all over. And they just sprung right up out of the ground. And then afterwards, when they put them away for the day, why, they camouflaged them, and you'd think there was just green grass there.
Right.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I guess they would have had a lot of anti-aircraft guns there.
They had a lot of anti-aircraft, yeah.
Right.
That was really interesting. For a guy, you know, a country boy, never
Right.
had never been out of town before, you know.
All right. Now, how did you spend your time when you were on the ship? Because you were on that boat for a long time.
Slept a lot.
Okay.
Slept a lot.
Now, what was the weather like on the crossing?
They had a little rough weather. The boat would come up and down and bangity bang, you know, but that's what made us sick.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would you do when the boat was in the storm? Do you just hang on to something or stay
Yeah,
in the-
that or lay in bed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we spent quite a bit.
All right.
Both times that I crossed the international date line, I was sick.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, they're sending you across the Pacific. Did they send you in a convoy, or did the ship go by itself?
There was a couple other ships.
All right. Were you worried at all about Japanese submarines or anything like that?
No, never even entered my mind.
All right.
I didn't think much of that stuff at that time. Yeah.
But did they have any drills or?
Oh yeah,
bullets?
we had drills, you know, boarding ship and debarking, you know, up the ladders and rope ladders and all this and that. That wasn't always fun either. Sometimes you get off on the ship and you was in pretty deep water yet. I didn't like it over my head.
All right. Well, did you know how to swim at that point?
Not really good. I could swim a little bit, but
But they had you in life jackets at least, right?
yeah, they was in life jackets. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, so,
Sometimes, not always. You know, a lot of times, it just that big LSC, you know, you'd pull in and they'd hit a sandbar or something. They'd drop the gate, out you go. And sometimes it went over your head.
right. But when you were crossing the ocean or whatever, it was kind of what I was
Yeah.
asking about. That's before the LST. Okay. Now, did you stop any place before you got to New Caledonia?
No,
Okay.
no.
So you landed in New Caledonia, and how long did it take you to get out there from New York?
43 days.
Okay. It's a long time to be on the same
Yeah.
boat.
Yeah.
All right.
Then we went to Atapi after
Okay.
that.
Well, tell us a little bit about New Caledonia. What kind of place was that at the time?
Awful hilly, mountainous weather. They had cemeteries there, and they always said they were for truck drivers. I believe them because we go around these mountains, and you'd look over down there, and it's for 1,000 feet, you know, straight down,
Right.
and them wheels would be that far away from the edge. That was scary. They used to say the cemetery, that's all truck drivers.
Right. Okay. Now, about how long did you spend there, do you think?
Yeah, I was there probably a couple months.
All right. And what were you doing while you were there?
Whenever we landed any place, we was always in training. You never quit training.
All right. And did they train you in jungle fighting there?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, who were you training with? Were they other replacements, or with you? Were you
I had kind of a deal going there when I was in New Caledonia. There was a guy from, well, 3-4 miles south of here. He was my lieutenant. And of course, in those days, you couldn't let anybody at home know where you were or anything. But he'd let my family know where I was. And I was kind of his orderly. My job was to wake him up in the morning and this and that. And he was kind of a carefree guy. He'd say, you know, I wake him up in the morning. He says, "What's the weather look like?" "Oh, it looks like rain." It's in New Caledonia, you know, you got rain. He'd say, "Go back to bed."
Right. Okay. Well, what kind of assignment did he have?
He was a captain. He was a platoon leader.
But was he basically just training people there? Or
Yeah, he was training people.
Okay.
Well, he fought with us. He
Okay.
fought with us in the Philippines, and I seen him get killed. He got a bullet wound, which we didn't think was bad enough to kill him, but he died. I always said he died of shock more than anything. So we lost him.
All right. But at the time he was in New Caledonia, were you assigned to a unit by this time?
Yeah, we had units, but then that changed as we went into
Okay.
the division.
All right. So you're still basically with training units at that stage.
Mm-hmm.
So you're on New Caledonia. Now, did you see anything of the local population there? I mean, this was a French colony.
In New Caledonia,
Mhm.
that was French, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And did you have much contact with the people who lived there?
No, well, we was told to stay away from leprosy, but we got nosy and we had to see what was going on. And we went one night, a couple of us went down there to kind of window peek a little bit. I lost my fountain pen. I didn't want to lose that because I had to go back and look for it. Finally, we found it where it crawled over the fence. But it was more interested in getting caught than if we got caught. I don't know what had happened to us.
All right. And that were there problems with soldiers' discipline, with prostitution or drinking or things like that there?
No, not really, no. No.
But you did mention seeing one young woman greet you as you were on your way through the town at some point, right?
Yeah.
And what did she have to say to the soldiers?
Oh, she just, she was marching through there wasn't much of a town, just a little, so she had got pregnant from one of those soldiers, and she said she liked to, she didn't know who was the father of her kid, but she'd like to thank each and every one of them.
All right. So after a couple of months on New Caledonia, then at that point they ship you out to New Guinea. Was that the next place? Now, when you got to Etape, was there still a battle going on?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I never forget when they got there was a Jap on a tank. They had taken prisoner. And I looked at him, and I thought to myself, how can somebody kill somebody like that? He's a human being. Yeah, I never forget him. He had a beard on and this and that, and he was just laying there, minding his own business. What else could he do, you know? But the next morning, we were sent on patrol through the islands, and I soon found out how you could kill one of them. It's either kill or get killed.
Now, on that first patrol, so you're now assigned to a unit. Now, what division were you serving with?
Was the division? I was with the 43rd Division then.
All right. And were you assigned to a rifle platoon?
Pardon?
Were you just a regular infantryman?
Yeah, regular infantryman, yeah.
And did you have the BAR at that point?
Yeah, I had BAR.
Okay. And so they send you out on patrol right away. So basically you join a platoon.
Next morning, yeah.
Right. So you join a platoon, and there's a group of men who have been together for a while.
Yeah.
Now, were you with a group of replacements who came in
Just
together?
we were replacements.
Okay. Yeah. But were there several of you who joined the same platoon?
The rest of them were all ones that survived from fighting there, you know.
Right.
From different islands. They fought through New Haven. My outfit, I don't know if you have ever heard of the President Coolidge ship. So they blew it in half.
Right.
I wasn't on it, but I was with all the guys that were on it. And the half of the ship sank, and the other half stayed up.
Yeah.
They hit in the Coral Sea.
Right.
And they hit one of their own mines and blew it in half.
All right. Yeah,
That was my outfit.
Okay. Now you joined so can you describe a little bit the experience of going on that first patrol?
Yeah, a little scared. What scares you when you hear that first bullet that whizzes by your ear? But they say, I was always told, don't be scared if you hear it.
Right.
You got nothing to worry about. It's already happened. It's going by you.
All right. Now, on that first patrol, did you just take sniper fire, or did you get into an actual fight?
A lot of sniper fire. Yeah.
All right. And what was it like marching through the jungle?
Oh, you'd march up to your chest in mud and stuff like that, you know. It was hard going.
Was it starting to make farming look good?
Yeah, you better believe it.
Okay. So
and mosquitoes. Oh, mosquitoes. During the day, you had so many bugs, you reach out and get a handful of them like that, and you squeeze them and the blood would run out. And mosquitoes at night, you know, we'd have head nets, you know.
Okay. Now, did they have you taking Atabrine for malaria at that
Oh,
point?
yeah, I had malaria bad. I had it when I come home, real bad. When I went to work and I come back home, I used to stand with, turn the hot water on and put my hands on there. That's the only way I could get the fever down.
When did you first start to feel malaria? Was it in New Guinea?
Oh, I had malaria when I was down in Atapi.
Okay, so you got it there. So even though you were taking the Atabrine and so forth,
yeah.
you got the malaria anyway.
Yeah,
Okay. Now, did you get sick enough with the malaria while you were there that you had to go into a field
I
hospital?
was hospitalized with it. I also got the dengue
Dengue fever?
fever.
All right.
And I went to the hospital, and at noon, I went to dinner. I had my lunch, and I sat down, and I couldn't get up.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew something was wrong, so they took me to the hospital, and they said I had dengue fever. It took me longer to get over the dengue fever than it did my actual wounds.
Mm-hmm. Now, how long were you in the field there in New Guinea before you got sick? Were you there a few weeks or a few days or?
Oh, just I'd say a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And over the course of that time, did your unit do much actual fighting or just a lot of patrolling in the jungle?
It was mostly patrolling, and we had quite an experience at the Fall of Singapore. When they had the Fall of Singapore, these Indians.
Yep.
We had about 25 or 30 of them that broke away from the Japs and came in, and we captured them. But they got through our perimeter because half of us were sleeping. The lieutenant says to me, he says, you could sleep anywhere. He says, you sleep right on top of the pillbox. I said, yeah, I did too. But we all went to sleep, and then these Indians, they slipped through our perimeter, and they got around behind us. There was about 30 of them, I guess.
Now, were these Indians that the Japanese had put into their army?
The Japanese captured them.
Right. Were they using them as laborers, or were they using them as soldiers?
Well, they just kind of, as laborers, they had them in the camp, and they made a deal with the Japanese. The Japanese needed salt, like we all needed salt. And these Indians would take the ocean water and dry it in the sun and got their salt, and they traded it to the Japs. So they got kind of a little friendly with them, you know, and then when they got friendly with them, they got away from them.
Okay. So, yeah, so you probably really weren't expecting to have some Indian soldiers show up.
No,
in the
we
middle
weren't
of your-
expecting it, because I can never forget them. They had this long hair and beard, and that was kind of a surprise. To have them walk right in and get right through your perimeter, that was kind of dangerous too.
Right. Good thing they were on your side. All right. Now, you're in the field for a few weeks, and then you get sick, and you go in the field hospital. And then was the field hospital in Atapi, or did they send you somewhere else?
Atapi had one, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, when I went from Atapi to make the landing on the Philippines at Lingayen Gulf, I got wounded, and we didn't have no hospital ships or anything, not enough to go around. So the only thing they could do was send me back to Atapi. So I went back to Atapi for the second time. That's where I was hospitalized, and I got the dengue fever back there.
All right. So we can follow your career here. So you spend some time serving with a rifle platoon in New Guinea, going on patrol and so forth. And then after a few weeks, you get sick, and so you go in the hospital. And then were you able to rejoin your unit to go into the Philippines?
I rejoined the unit back up at the Philippines. Yeah.
Okay. Now, so did you travel with the unit to go up to the Philippines?
No,
Or you
just
joined them?
any ship that was available that was going, you know.
Okay. So when did you get to the Philippines?
Oh,
Kind of early 45 by then, or?
yeah, I got up there. Well, I still got into fighting yet, but we were on night patrol when the war ended, and the word come through that we were training to make a landing on Japan.
Right.
And we was on this patrol, and son of a gun, we got the word that war was over. Nobody wanted to finish the night out, you know. It was so dark, like it get dark where you'd hang on to one another in front of you, and that's the way you traveled, you know, at night.
Yeah.
And no, they wouldn't give up. We still had a train, even though we was.
Right.
And I moved right into Japan just as soon as the war was over. But they signed the treaty right in
Right. Now let's back up a little bit. I'm going to go back. I'm going to follow your story here. You were in the hospital. You get out of the hospital, and then they ship you up to the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
And is that when you were traveling? Did you go in an LST then, or a transport, or?
No, I didn't travel on it. LST, I used LST on Lingayen Gulf.
Right.
We made the original, on the Philippines.
So the 43rd Division, did the 43rd Division go to Leyte first?
To Lingayen Gulf.
Okay. Well, Leyte was the first place we landed in the Philippines.
Yeah. My outfit was at Leyte.
Okay.
But I wasn't.
Right. And then you joined them in time for the Lingayen Gulf landing then?
We went back to New Zealand, for rest.
Okay.
And when we was in New Zealand, and then the Japs got active again in Japan, or down in New Guinea, so we had to go back down there.
Okay. So you're going to a sort of a bunch of different places.
Yeah.
Try to follow your sequence a little bit. So you go, so from when you left the hospital in New Guinea after being sick,
yeah.
Where did you go next? Did you go to New Zealand or where?
From New Guinea, when we got all done at New Guinea, we went to the Philippines.
Right.
And then I got wounded in the Philippines, so went back to Atapi in New Guinea. Then when I got good, I went back up and finished our fight in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
And then we relieved the prisoners at Clark's Field.
Mm-hmm.
And we stayed there until the war ended.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Tell me a little bit more about what you were doing in the Philippines. You land at Lingayen Gulf. Now, were you part of the invasion landing there?
We were
We were
the invasion.
And how did you get ashore then when you landed there?
Well, we went and marched ashore like there was a picnic.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happened.
Okay.
The Japs knew where we were all the time. We didn't know where they were.
Mm-hmm.
And we got up and there wasn't a shot fired. We walked ashore and dug in, set up, and at night the hell broke loose.
Mm-hmm. Now, so they started basically. They stayed inland and they stayed.
Well,
hidden.
they knew. They sat and watched us
Right.
all day and all night. You know, digging in and getting
Right.
set up, and so they had a pretty good idea where we were at. And
Okay. Now, so did they start shooting at you with mortars or machine guns or artillery?
Artillery and stuff.
All right. Now, at what point did you get wounded then?
Well, we was up in the mountains, and I had a lieutenant. He was his name was Cohen, Lieutenant Cohen, and he was kind of an orderly.
Mm-hmm.
I carried his radio for him.
Now, was this the same lieutenant that you'd worked for?
No, this was
back
a different lieutenant.
Guy. Okay.
He told me, he said, you take as many soldiers as you need, you go over on the other mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you set up over there, he said, with these guys, and he says, when the Japs come, they're going to come right down through this valley here.
Mm-hmm.
I said, yeah, I know it. I said, you know what? I said, I ain't going over there. I said, if you go, I said, I'll go. Well, he said, you refuse the order? I said, I'm not taking any men over there on that hill. I said, the Japs come through, which we was expecting. I said, I'm cut off from all you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And so he decided to go. And we went over there, and we set up on the other mountain. We dug in, and the artillery, they come through with artillery pulled by horses.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably about 150 horses. I'd say at least 100 horses were killed.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a shell, artillery shell, in the hole where I was, about like that,
Wow.
because I left the hole. Went over the mountain. The reason I know the shell was there, because the next morning when we went back, we found the shell. It was a dud. And we lost a lot of men that night. We killed about 300 Japs that night. Yeah.
And did you get hit in part
We
as part of
killed
that?
horses. There must have been at least
Right.
100 horses.
Right. So you basically sprung an ambush on them when they came through?
Yeah, I and another guy, we were in a hole, and the Japs tossed a grenade. And my buddy hollered when he did, and of course he knew right where we was at, so then we got a second one.
Right.
So,
And
that
so,
was we didn't have enough stretchers to carry the people back. My first sergeant carried me back on a piggyback, and he was killed on the way back up again.
now, what kind of wound did you have? Where were you hit?
Shrapnel
Sort of in the legs or body or all over
in
the
my
place?
back and legs and ankles.
Okay. And so they,
I couldn't walk.
right. And so your sergeant gets you back. Okay. And then from there, they have to ship you back out.
And then I went back to Atapi,
All
to
right.
the hospital, because there wasn't no hospital ships or
Right.
nothing, no hospital set up.
Now, about how long did you spend in the hospital then to heal
I
from
was
that?
back there about 2 months, I guess.
Okay. And then you get back up to the Philippines again right toward the end of the war?
Yeah.
All right. Now tell me about getting to Clark Field. You said you went there and,
Well, they had all these prisoners that was left there with MacArthur, and they were all at Clark Field, and they had men there that would weigh about 200 pounds, but by the time they got relieved or taken out of there, they down to about 70 pounds, some of them. And they'd tell what they had to eat, and one of the worst things they had to eat was monkey. And then one told me, he said he couldn't stand to look at that monkey, because he said the monkey reminded him so much of a newborn baby. When they're skinned out, they look like a baby, he said. But then we occupied Clarksfield. Yeah. And they took all the Japs out and got them in the hospital. They had a lot of women nurses there too.
right.
Yeah.
Were they in any better shape than the men were?
Some of them were in bad shape. They didn't know which way was up.
All right.
See, the Japs had hauled them off into the mountains and kept them for their private uses, you know. Yeah.
All right. So now, did you see much of the local population there in the Philippines?
Yeah, we've seen a lot of it. They all would leave their homes and take everything they had with them, a buffalo or whatever animal they had, and they go for miles, you know, to get away from the fighting and this and that. All they had, they hauled on their back.
Now, were they basically friendly to the Americans coming
Oh
in?
yeah, they were friendly. The Filipinos, they were very nice people. They hated the Japs, and then if they would find a Jap that was a straggler, they took care of him. He usually would find him in two pieces, his head in one piece and his body in the other piece. That's how they handled them.
Now, once you were based in a fairly secure area, did you start to have Filipinos who would work for you, wash clothes or things like that?
Oh yeah. So they were always around. You couldn't even take a shower without them Filipinos being around. Yeah, I got a Filipino doctor at the VA now, a woman, and she said to me one day, she said, "You don't like me, do you?" I said, "I got nothing against you." She says, "You think I'm a Jap, don't you?" And I said, "No." I said, "I don't know what you are, but you're not a Jap." She says, "I'm a Filipino." So then she gave me a big hug for fighting for them. Yeah, Dr. Olson.
Okay.
She
Now,
said last time she was in the Philippines was in 91. She went back there to visit. She works down to the VA downtown.
Right. Now, about how long did you stay in the Philippines?
Well, it seemed like quite a while. We was there quite a while. The whole fighting time.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Right. And so you're there when the war ends, since that's in August of 45.
yeah, we were there the night that the war ended, and we immediately, because we was ready to make the landing on Japan anyway, we immediately left and went in Japan. We sat in the harbor while they signed the peace treaty.
All right. What kind of ship were you on when you were in the harbor? Just a transport, or?
It was a transport, yeah. And then when they took us off from it, we went to an old airport that had been bombed. The United States had bombed.
Right.
And half of it was bombed and half of it was good. It had a roof over it. And we stayed in the half that had the roof over it yet.
Okay. Now, could you see much of anything when you got into the harbor? Could you see the other ships or anything on the shore?
No, I don't have much recollection of Japan. I think I was there 3 days.
Okay.
And all I can remember about Japan is they had the right idea there. They made the women work, and they followed behind. The women would push a wheelbarrow, and the man, he'd walk behind.
Okay. So you spent a few days in Japan, but then you come back out again. Do you have any idea why they sent you to Japan in the first place?
Well, I came home then.
Okay.
Yeah, I was all done. I come home.
All right. Because they have you listed as being discharged in early December. So did it take a while to get back across, or?
No, we landed in Oakland, California, and then we came across. Well, see, I came home, and I couldn't get no discharge.
Okay.
They were coming out so fast that I come home and I met my wife. I went to work in my uniform. I worked for about 3 months in my uniform. I think I came home and I had to go back. I come home in October and I had to go back after Christmas to get my discharge. They come through so fast that they couldn't discharge them fast enough. Then the day that I went back to Camp Shanks, Illinois for a discharge, I broke out with malaria. I had a bad case. I wanted to get out so bad, I was afraid they was going to keep me, but they let me through.
Would that be Camp Grant, Illinois, maybe?
Yeah.
You said Shanks, but that was in New York.
Oh, that was New York.
Yeah.
I went in one camp in New York. I entered and went to for my training, and I will come into a different camp when I come back.
Right. Okay.
But I went right to work. I had a job in the factory, a guaranteed job when I came back, so I went right back to work. I worked about 3 months. I would say it's 3 months, and I was in my uniform.
Was that sort of part of the rule at that point? You were allowed to be home at that point?
No, I could have used my. I had 6 months army or pay that I could draw, but I don't know. I just wanted to get back to work.
Okay. All right. Now, you're listed as having 3 Bronze Stars. Were those sort of campaign things awarded to the whole unit for campaigns, or did you do individual things for those? Yeah,
well, there's some of the guys in the division got more stars than I did because they fought. See, I only fought in the New Guinea and
right.
So in the Philippines.
Right.
For these other ones, they fought in Munda and New Hebrides, and all them different places. I went in as a replacement.
Right.
So these guys were, and when I say replacement, they were thinned right down to nothing. They had to have replacements. That's why we got the call to join them.
Okay. Now, you mentioned when you were in action in the Philippines, and you were talking about the lieutenant giving you an order, and he was telling you to take a group of men. Did that mean that you were actually one of the more senior guys by that time?
No, I was a radio man. I was supposed to keep contact with him.
Okay.
I don't know how they picked me to be radio man for him, but there's a little town called Rosario, and when we went to take this town, And it was got to be well known in the Philippines, Rosario. People heard of Rosario. We 3 days trying to take this town. And I, being as a radio man, I had to go in and get information and send it back. You know? Well, they had the town so booby-trapped that all the trees and stuff, they'd blow them up right in front of you. And as I went in, I looked out in front of me about from here to where my wife sits over there. There's two Japanese on a machine gun, pointed right at me. And I didn't know what to do. I stopped. I froze, and I froze right there. He could have had me. The only thing I always said, they was as scared as I was. In the Philippines, they had a lot of stone walls, about hip high. And I looked at them, and they looked at me, and they never made a motion to shoot at me, and I didn't make no motion to shoot at them. And so something told me to run and jump over the stone wall. When I went over the stone wall, they shot, and I could feel all this. I thought I was all riddled to pieces, but they shooting into the stones, and the stones was hitting me. But we got chased out of that town 3 days in a row. And 3 days in a row that I didn't run into the machine gun every time, but I'll tell you, I was a little scared of that town.
Now, were they sending you in by yourself, or did you have guys with you?
I had a couple guys with me.
Okay, now at some point, you had mentioned earlier that there was a point when you decided that you were tired of the BAR, at the point when they didn't have enough men to have ammo carriers for you. And so, do you think maybe did you go from BAR to being a radio man, or were you a rifleman for a while in between?
They gave me the radio, and they gave me a grenade. It was a fairly new on the market. It hadn't really been out, and they picked me to test it. Well, the grenade set on your rifle,
Right.
and when you get your distance by this. And went in, I got an order to fire a grenade in the town. So I put my grenade on, and like this, and I fired it, and it went way over the town. So I brought it back, and I put another one on, and brought it back. The thing went up, just got behind me. I said, well, the next one I got to go a little further ahead.
Right.
So I put that one up. That sucker come down, almost got me. So, but that was that used to hit the papers, Rosario. That was a tough little town. 3 days we tried to take it, and we got run out every time.
Well, did you go back on a fourth day and finally take it?
Yeah, we went back, we got it. Yeah, but it was noted one of the worst places in the Philippines.
Now, you had a variety of assignments and duties there while you were in the field. Now, a couple of them, being a radio man or being a BAR man, in a lot of cases that was viewed as being pretty dangerous. The Japanese would want to shoot you first. Now, off camera, you mentioned that, what orders did you have when you had a BAR? When would you fire? What was that? How did that work?
You only fired if it was absolute necessary, and you got really pinned down and you needed the firepower, but you never gave away because that's the first thing the Japanese would go for is machine guns to knock them out.
Right.
And BARs, that was the main purpose. We had 2 Australian soldiers that deserted the Australian army and came with us. And they were the fightingest fools that you ever seen. Well, they'd have machine guns that was firing out in front of us, and they go around and break that machine gun up, and then pretty soon here they come with a couple of Japs by the hair, leading them right up to you. And we told them they could go back to their outfits. They didn't want to go back to their outfits. They stayed right with us.
Well, did they join you in the Philippines, or had they joined you back?
They joined in the Philippines.
Okay. Now, but they had come in as soldiers as part of the invasion. They weren't people who were prisoners there. Or
no, they weren't prisoners. They were just.
Right. Now, as a radio man, weren't you also a target? Wouldn't they try to shoot the radio?
Well, you always. Like I say, you hear all these bullets whiz by, and you don't worry about them. Once you hear them whiz, it's good. There's one guy, my buddy, he got a bullet in his helmet on this side. Then he got one on this side, and he says, the next one is going to be right between my eyes, and he did too. And the third one he got, he made a dead hit.
All right. Now, what other kinds of duties did you have in the Philippines? Did you see Japanese prisoners at all, or deal with them?
We took very few prisoners. And I don't know that we didn't like them guys.
But did you wind up guarding any, or?
I did guard some. I took some of them to MacArthur's mansion, guarded them there. Of course, they always told me about guarding prisoners. If you guarding prisoners, you don't let nobody come between you and the prisoners, you know. But MacArthur used to come out and give these guys candy bars, and who was I to say? You know.
You saw MacArthur come out and give candy bars to Japanese prisoners?
Oh, yeah. He gave them to and he talked to you. He was just I've seen him different times, you know. Yeah.
Okay. What did the Japanese prisoners look like to you? What impression did you have of them?
Well, they're just like you and me, really. We took a Japanese prisoner on a work detail one time. And they always told us if any of them got away from us, we'd have to serve their time. Well, I didn't do it, but one of the guys overlooked it. When we loaded up our prisoners to go back to camp, one got forgotten. And he sat there. Well, when we got back and took our count, we was missing one, so they had to go back. And that guy, he was waiting for him to come back and get him. He didn't want to be stuck out there either, you know. Not only that, somebody would shoot and kill him, you know. So he figured he was safer with us than he was sitting out there on a log.
Okay. Now, once the war officially ended, were there still Japanese fighting or out there in the jungle?
Stragglers. But usually the Filipinos took care of them. Like I say, the Filipinos, if there was a straggler in a neighborhood, they usually would contact us that there was one there. But we very seldom got to them. By the time we got to them, they had made 2 parts of them.
So you didn't really have problems with people sniping at you or things like that after? Okay, so that was still going on?
Oh, yeah. We had both in New Guinea and the Philippines. But we didn't take prisoners,
right,
as a rule. They tell you to take prisoners, but use your own judgment. If he shoots at you, you shoot back at him.
Okay. Are there other particular events or things that happened while you were there that you tend to remember that you haven't mentioned here to us yet?
No, I think that pretty well covers it.
Okay. Now they get you back to the U.S., and you go back to work, you pick up your old job again.
Yeah.
All right. And did you stay in that job for a long time, or did you?
20 years.
Okay. And I guess to look back at the whole thing now, how do you think your time in the Army wound up affecting you?
How do you think what?
How did your time in the Army affect you? Did you change at all or grow up any? Or?
Oh, yeah. Well, I always said my Army time was my education, because I didn't have no education.
Right.
8th grade, and that was all education. I'd never been out of the United States, never been out of the state. So everything that I learned was news to me. And I seen some of the country. I always said I went out the East Coast. I come back to West Coast. I saw a lot of things, did a lot of things, saw a lot of the country. I was in New Zealand. I was in New Caledonia, in New Guinea, in the Philippines, in Japan. Where else could could you got such a deal? Now, I wouldn't want to go through it again, but it was well worth it.
Okay. Now, how long were you actually in New Zealand? Was this a short time? Or?
Yeah, we just a short time till we got reset again, and we got, I had a girlfriend in New Zealand, so they notified us in a minute, and let's notice that they had a breakthrough down in the Philippines, or in the New Guinea. We had to go back down there.
Mm-hmm.
So MPs come through town and said, everybody back to the, out to the ship, get on the ship, we're going to leave. So we got back to the ship and they weren't doing nothing, so I and another guy, we decided to go back to town.
Mm-hmm.
We crawled over the side of the ship and down the rope, and we went back to town, and we got back to the ship, it was just ready to blow up.
Mm-hmm.
It probably wouldn't have been such happy days if we'd been late for the ship.
Okay. Well, what impression did you have of New Zealand? Did you like that as a
Oh,
place to stay?
beautiful place, beautiful place.
Do you remember where you were? Were you in Auckland?
Auckland, New Zealand, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I had a pass that I could go anytime that I wanted to in New Zealand. I was chasing prisoners. If you chase for, let's see, 8 hours, you had 40 off.
Mm-hmm.
And I had full rights to the kitchen. I could go to the kitchen anytime I wanted to. You could reach up and get a big quarter of beef, pull it down on the block, cut you off a steak, and any time of the day or night, because you was on call or on duty all the time, so you could go in the kitchen and cook your own meal.
All right. So who were you chasing? Were they Japanese prisoners?
Japanese prisoners, yeah.
So were they holding a lot of Japanese prisoners there?
Quite a few of them. Not a lot of them, but quite a few of them.
Mm-hmm. And were they using them as laborers, or just
They
the
didn't
prison
do
camp?
nothing. They just made them a little, just like they're the general's office. They got out there, to the Philippines to get out and do a little picking up this and that, but they didn't do nothing much.
Okay. Now, were they hard to catch when they got away?
Well, they didn't really have any getaway. He wouldn't even run. He was too happy to stay right where he was. He figured that they'd come and get him back,
But I meant in New Zealand. You said you were chasing prisoners there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they didn't. I had one I figured was trying to break out on me one time, but they put him in lockup. He had a cardboard box that he moved out of the kitchen, and he had it down by the fence, and he was digging to get out underneath the fence. So when they caught that, they put him in lockup where he couldn't do no digging.
Do you have any idea how you wound up with the assignment of being a guy to chase them?
No, not really. I don't. They just try to keep you occupied, One time they told me they needed parachute men, and I hated the Army infantry. I hated it with a passion, and so I volunteered. I usually volunteered for all that stuff. They always said don't volunteer, but I volunteered to take the test for parachute jumper. And they went down to the infirmary, and they had a doctor sitting there in a chair. And get up on the chair, he says. Get up on the chair, jump off, look at your feet. That was the last I ever heard of that. I guess it didn't jump off right.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that was a little bit of a sidetrack, but I think we got pretty well done here. Thank you for coming in and sharing your story with us.
Well, thank you.